Good morning, everyone. Wonderful to be together as a church again in our own strange little way on a Sunday. I say strange little way because we are in our different homes all over the city. In a way, it is what we've always obviously hoped for, that we will spread. We certainly didn't anticipate it in such a way. On a personal note, I definitely miss the worship service. I miss being together as a congregation. I miss singing together. I miss the whole spirit and feel of the fellowship. And even in doing sermons and messages, it has certainly been so much harder to speak in this way than what it is to speak there with you guys in the congregation when there is, I know for me, when I'm doing messages, it actually feels like we're having a conversation when we're there, and I can sort of feel and read the room and interact, and it's been so much harder not being able to do so. So certainly looking forward to us being together again. We're still not sure if it's going to happen in this year. God will have to guide that. But at this stage, I want to encourage everyone again, stay, as we said with the new normal a couple of months ago, that we will stay close to God, stay close to one another, and stay outward focused. And I know that a number of people are going through a difficult time with regards to being alone at home and seeing really almost nobody else, and working from home, and some people are facing financial challenges and all kinds of things. And I do want to encourage you again, we as a congregation want to help, and we want to be able to hear your needs, and I want to encourage you, please speak to your discipling partner or your family group leader, make us aware of those needs so that we can help them. And maybe as a family group leader, you feel like, but sure, my whole family group is taking strain and I'm taking strain with them. Then I want to again encourage you, speak to your ministry group leader, speak to another family group leader. But this is an opportunity for us to be together, to be a family, and help one another navigate different things as we all feel different things at different times, and obviously respect that as we navigate it together. Today we're continuing our, I don't really want to call it a series because it's more a series of conversations and not sort of just like a plan, okay, we do a series on lesson 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but it's more hoping that it will open up discussion for who we are as different people, as we are as different races, black, white, colored, Asian, African, whatever it might be. How do we navigate life together as a church? And last week we started the conversation where I brought you into a conversation that I had with Themba Kulu. We are going to continue that conversation today, so it's literally part 2. And then obviously next week I'm going to be speaking to Alistair Kluter, and we'll get a coloured perspective, if you may. And listen, we know that we won't get it all right, and we know that every person that speaks, whether it's me, whether it's Themba, whether it's Alistair, we're obviously also looking at it through our own lens, whatever that lens might be. But just a quick recap on last week. We spoke about 2 things mainly, was structural racism, what that is. In other words, how there's a structure created to, in a way, make one race superior to the other, or push the one down. And then also Themba's experience of racism outside of the church. Today is, I don't want to say controversial, but touch more heartstrings, as we're going to be talking about experiences of racism inside of the church. And I'm not talking about the denominational world, I'm talking about inside of the Church of Christ. And also the second question that I'll be talking about is what black people would like white people to know. Now, I know in the midst of all of this, there can be tension, there can be lots of feelings, there can be lots of emotions, and what I want to encourage people to do is that we'll seek to understand. We're not here to fight. I'm not here to fight with anyone. Themba's not here to fight with anyone. But they will just seek to understand each other, understand each other's cultures, understand each other's feelings, and figure out, how do we get together? How do we become that garden-like community that God has always intended, where there is diversity, where we celebrate diversity, and where we work at not hurting one another, but helping one another. But without further ado, let me hand over to myself and Themba and our conversation on race, culture, and the church. Now that's outside the church. Now inside of the church, how have you through the years experienced racism inside of the church? Now I know that some guys might be saying, well, so what, inside of the church, what do you mean? But it does happen. I know most white people would most probably think that that's not possible. But what has your experience been, and can you please name names?
No. So in the church, I think, most people who become disciples really desire to, they really love God. They desire to serve God with all of their hearts, and that in some way is a sifting process. And so the racism that exists in the church often is of a subtle kind, and often is informed by ignorance as opposed to outright, I'm going to hold these strong views that my race is superior. And so, but there are times when it's just in your face, where I have interacted with disciples who would say that they genuinely believe that the white race is superior. And that's just where they're at. And so even then, even as a leader, I believe that I don't want to put race up there as a different sin. And so it's possible to have a disciple who loves God and loves Jesus and still be racist, whether by ignorance or that they have begun to embrace some of these ideas, looking at their social media and the posts that they are putting up there, being posts of white radical, racist groups that they choose to align themselves with, and then sometimes it's again, through ignorance, you're chatting to different people, and someone says, "Man, I just can't believe how stupid Black people are that they are voting for the ANC."
Sure.
And again, you want those conversations to happen. You want those things to kind of come to the surface, so that then the person can be able to receive the help that they need. But it's painful when it surfaces, and it requires a lot of discipline. And then sometimes it's just subtle things like, maybe someone say, "Man, you speak so well." And it's like, what does that mean?
Yeah, what do you mean by that?
What does that mean? Or wow, you studied to become a pilot. Wow, but as if that's for a Black person, that's very impressive, because that's just not.
That doesn't happen.
Black people are just not capable, of processing things that complex. And sometimes, again, it doesn't come from. I think it's just at times it's just ignorance. It's just someone not even knowing that when I say this, that it comes across harmful to the other person, and then just taking the time to have the conversation, to educate, to train, or someone saying, I hate, or maybe hate is a strong word, but man, I can't understand this affirmative action. It's reverse apartheid, and but feeling very strong and convicted, or even like images of the white Jesus, being peddled and shown in our churches, or books like kids' kingdom material that are projecting the image of the white Jesus and perpetuating that idea. So, I could go on and on and on about that and how that needs to change. But yeah, it's there.
Now, we've obviously, I should have pre-warned some folk, PG violence, in terms of that. Again, when we have had some of these conversations, obviously a lot of it was a surprise for me and not being able to see it. So let's say a white Jesus, me being white and seeing a white Jesus, I didn't think much of a white Jesus. Knowing a little bit about the ancient Near East, there's obviously not a chance that Jesus was white, but it yet didn't necessarily bother me. But not realizing that is, again, a a superiority figure that is made white, okay?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
maybe intentionally, unintentionally, I don't know where the white Jesus comes from, but
Yeah.
the white Jesus is here. And the white
Yeah.
Jesus, the white Jesus has that effect and plays a role into someone even coming to the conclusion that the white race is superior. Now,
Yeah.
obviously, I feel a little bit different than you about the disciples saying the white race is superior. I can imagine that there's a problem with that that needs to be untangled. Okay,
Yeah.
and what I do agree with, and you and I have had this conversation as well, is the peeling of an onion. That when one originally becomes Christians, and before becoming a Christian, I had no black or colored friends. Now suddenly I'm part of a multiracial church. I have black and colored friends, what have you, and that's one layer of the onion. And there are things
Yeah.
in my heart that I might not even be aware of.
Yeah.
Okay. But then these extremist things come up or different things happen, and then there's a part that surfaces. Well, as you said, the social media thing, I've seen that as well. I think, so, personally for me, social media is one of the worst ills with regards to these things, because sometimes people post things as if no one else is watching.
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
particularly disciples with political views on any side of the fence. For me, it is
Yeah.
is that what we should be doing as Christians, is
Yeah.
promoting a political party towards certain actions or extremist people? But okay, let's not go there. But all those things obviously plays a role. I have heard things like, I'll never date a white guy saying, and I heard this recently, I didn't hear it before, I literally heard it in the last couple of weeks, that a white guy would say to a black or a colored sister, I'll never get married to someone of color. Okay.
Yeah.
And I don't have any problems in my heart. They don't say that part. What I mean is, because as I hear these things, and I'm sure there are things that I've said that has been hurtful and wasn't aware of, but I feel like, sure, some of those things are pretty extreme. And then my next question would be, did someone speak to them? Because we need help. We don't have to kill the guy, but we have, we need to. We obviously have to have conversation and say, where did that come
Yes.
from? And are you okay?
Yeah.
How are you thinking about it? And maybe the dude was thinking, sure, my parents will kill me, and he misspoke,
Yes. Yes.
or what have you. Or maybe he's just, his mind is not gotten his head around that and not realizing that
Yeah.
there's layers of the onion that needs to be peeled. And the question would
Yeah.
obviously be, not did he make the very unsavory, unloving, comment, but what does he do when spoken about? In other words, if it's brought up, is the person able or willing to see, sure, man, I didn't even see that, and go back and apologize and work through what have you. So obviously those would be hopes for me. Okay, I know our time's going to run out, so let me, I do have two more questions. One is, and I think that this is sort of want to open it up, and I know we and I have had this discussion before as well, that, and it's funny how each culture can make jokes about themselves. It's funny. So I'm Afrikaans. Afrikaans white people can make jokes about other Afrikaans white people. But if someone else makes a joke about the Afrikaans white person, you're sort of like, hey, man. How can you do that?
Yeah.
And also easier, obviously more comfortable to have conversations in one's own setting. Now, let's say we have a group of black guys sitting around having us at the braai. Now, I know a braai is sort of a thing that many black guys learn in the church. Let's not say that at a braai, okay? And they're saying, man, here's something that I wish white people would know or understand, okay? That I think they just don't, out of ignorance, out of pride, out of what have you. What would be some of those things that are said around the campfire? Because here's your opportunity. Here's your opportunity. White people would certainly in the church would be listening to this. So here's your. I should give you say here's the microphone. And what are some things that you wish white people would know?
Yeah. So I wish that white people would invest time studying about the world that we are in, systemic racism that's a thing, that it exists, and that's a separate thing from, like, the individual interactions. And but also realize that white supremacist ideas are harmful to all of us. We, in the context of us as South Africans, many of us who are alive today were born into apartheid, and that was a legal system. It's not like we were having a choice of how we want to look at each other. Before we even were having a choice, that there was a system in place that was there to divide us, before we can even make the decisions. And that many white people are victims of white supremacist ideas. So they themselves, if they don't take the time to actually realize that there is this evil that exists, even though the end result of the evil might be of a benefit to me as an individual, but it's still an evil, even though I am not going out of my way to perpetuate or to promote the harmful ideas. That does not mean that it doesn't exist. So I think that the first thing there will be that. And then secondly, if I look at what the Bible says in Ephesians 6, from verse 10, it says, a final warning: be strong with the Lord's mighty power. Put on all of God's armor so that you will be able to stand firm against all strategies and tricks of the devil. For we are not fighting against people made of flesh and blood, but against evil rulers and authorities of the unseen world, against those mighty powers of darkness who rule this world, and against wicked spirits in the heavenly realms. So we are in this together. So we start as all of us are victims of the same force that is dividing us across racial lines. And so if we see that, and we see that this is an evil system, then it helps us to be able to empathize. It helps us to be able to actually sit on the same side of the fence, which is where we all belong. And so we are together saying, okay, there's a system out there that seeks to divide us, and we are in this spiritual warfare, and we are a band of brothers. We are going to defeat this system. And we are not going to allow ourselves or our kids to indoctrinate us with these ideas, but we are going to stand together and fight these ideas. But if you don't, as a white person, if you don't do anything to stand out and stand against racism, but then you are very vocal and you speak against, for example, Black Lives Matter, just the statement, and you feel like, no, but all lives matter, or affirmative action, this is reverse apartheid, or sometimes people feel like, well, I kind of want to be I want to play the devil's advocate here, well, when this policeman went to this guy, what did he do? Or it becomes a very dangerous place, because you are intentionally walking away from the same side where we are. And you are saying, I am choosing to go stand with the devil, and I want to defend him. And I want to say, or if I say, this is my experience, being in Pretoria, of, people calling me a kefir, people giving me a different service. And then you say, well, you are overreacting. No, that doesn't happen today. So you are defending something. And from where I'm sitting, that which you are defending is evil. And so you are associating yourself with evil, which makes it difficult then to say, how do we, then it feels like you are with the enemy and not with you're not with justice. You're not with God's cause. Yeah.
And I can tell you right now, and you making that comment, that there might be a couple of white people listening where their spouse is now in the process of resuscitating them and calling the ER, and just not understanding. Okay, and I know we had a similar I'm not laughing. I didn't laugh then. We had a similar conversation, you and I, where you also said to me, listen, if I'm defending a system or if I'm defending an injustice, then I'm playing devil's advocate, which means I'm advocating the devil. And I went away from that and I said to my wife, I'm not sure if I understood it, but I think he said I'm for the devil. I said, I walked away from that conversation that I'm a racist and I'm for the devil. And but man, it rocked my world. Okay, and thought, sure, you must be feeling some deep things to make such strong comments, if you may, that I'm not seeing. And that's obviously what I realized, is that there are things that I'm not seeing. And again, I can't speak for all white people, but what I can say, for me as someone that grew up at the back end of apartheid and wasn't personally involved in it. Okay, I never hit anyone, swore at someone that I can remember of those kind of things. I feel like I grew up, I became a Christian in 1993, 1994, new South Africa. Okay, so in my mind, I live in the new South Africa. Okay, this is the good South Africa. And and then that feeling of, as it reverse affirmative action, reverse racism. I've had those thoughts, not feeling them strongly necessary, but I've had them, and I think it's been because of a lack of education and a lack of understanding, and a lack of understanding that the racism that we are talking about, not only in South Africa but across the world, has been for centuries. Okay. And the effects of it has been for centuries. And I'm talking about, sure, well, we've had a new government for 25 years, whose responsibility is this? And yes, there is some truth in that, okay? But it's a much bigger problem than that. That's not going to be solved in 25 years or maybe even in our lifetime in the world. But in the church, it can be different. And I know if I can say something to white people, and I might lose some friends here, or some people might unfriend me from Facebook, is if we don't get to the point where we can see that an evil has been committed, and I'm not talking about George Floyd, that's pretty evident. I mean, I only watched the video a week or two afterwards. I mean, that is just brutal murder. Okay. And I think my guess is the majority of, and I can't speak for white people, but the majority would must probably say that was evil. Okay. But I think what a number of us are not seeing is that historically, there's a lot of evil that has happened that is not necessarily stopped. And it's not as in your face as that. Okay. It's the subtleties. It's the defense of something. It is the lack of understanding. And I know I mentioned this to you. What I realized is if you and I were to go, and I use the example because we've had coffee often at Camps Bay or gone for dinner there. If we walk into the Bay Hotel, I'm not going to be noticed, I think. Okay. Now listen, I can say I've obviously spent much time in Soweto while I was in Joburg, and there I was noticed. Okay, but but in the Bay Hotel, I won't get noticed. You walk into the Bay Hotel and you will be noticed, even though it's a place welcoming foreigners and all kinds of things. You will be noticed. Now we go and we go to the restaurant. I don't see you, and I've learned I need to see you as black. Again, it's difficult for white folk to get this right, but I don't see you as a color. I see you as a friend. But I realized obviously as well that I must see you as a color, because if I don't, I'm going to miss out on some of these things. So now the waiter has maybe got a bit of a racist slant on him. I don't see you as black or any color. You're just a friend. Now you say, man, wasn't that waiter didn't he come across racist? I'm like, geez, dude, you look a little bit sensitive. Because I'm not in touch.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I've taken from our discussions as well. What I want to encourage white people is go to Soweto. Okay.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm not sure if I've said this publicly before, but I preached there many times, spent a lot of time with the church there. And in the beginning, when I drove into Soweto, I'm like, oh my word, I'm definitely the only white dude here. And my car had a non-working sunroof, but it was a see-through roof, which would let light in, which shows in the car that I'm white. So I would close the roof. that I could disappear in the darkness. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I felt like I stood out like a sore thumb, and I did. It's a reality, and I think that's what a lot of white people, particularly in Cape Town, do not realize, and do not realize. Sure, it must be incredibly hard, and in Cape Town, where black is the minority group, and as you know, I've spoken about in the suburbs, unfortunately, sadly, almost a non-existing group. The tension and pressure that must be felt, and am I there as a brother to protect you?
Yeah.
And by that I don't mean physically. I mean, if it needs to come to that, I'll beef up.
Yeah, you will run fast you will tell someone.
I'll push you ahead of me or drag you or what have you. But it's where you feel safe with me. I think that's what I would want, is for you to feel safe with me.
Yeah, and so it's that sense of we are both realizing we are on this side of the fence. We are the ones pushing the envelope, and so you are going to look out for me in certain ways. I'm going to look out for you in other ways. So when my wife and I are in Cape Town, often we would go. Okay, at least this one time we went with Lanelle to Khayelitsha to Mzoli's. And so when we are there at Mzoli's and this art and craft places and whatever, she's free, she's happy to be there. But boy, I'm looking out for her.
Yeah.
I'm watching. I'm noticing how the guys are looking at her. I'm noticing what's going on. I'm alert. I'm very alert because she's my sister. She's my, and it's the same thing. We may go for a jog with Zama or go for a walk. If we are in downtown Pretoria or whatever, and there's a place where it's busy or whatever, I'm looking at what's happening, because by virtue of her being a woman, she's already at a disadvantage. There are already so many other things that are coming at her that I may never have to worry about. And so I'm putting on those antennas are constantly up. If I'm with so it's that type of awareness that that we all need, and I need that all the time. I mean, it's not even just with race. The African culture, and I think we even spoke about this, about how sometimes the culture can be insensitive towards women, and so when we visit my family, I am constantly looking out for my wife. I'm, sure, she needs to be free. She needs to love everybody. And but we have a partnership. I never want, all I've known is being a man and being an African man, and I've benefited from one could say the injustice of the cultural insensitivities that come her way as a woman, because the expectation is that I must just sit down, she must serve me, she must bring me tea with a tray and my food, and so I have to constantly educate my family and help them, but I must educate myself and make sure that in our marriage I never, through ignorance or any other way, put my wife in a position where she feels like I'm enjoying the privilege bestowed upon me by the culture, and I am insensitive to the cultural insensitivities and how that works to her detriment. And I'm saying, why is she making a big deal? So we walk into a family event, and I'm constantly, and often I've had to say to my family that no, please, please don't expect that from Zama, or and then at times I'm saying to my family, no, I don't want that. I don't want that being done to my wife. Yeah. And she's on the other side saying, no, honey, it's not a big deal. Yeah. I'll do it. So I'm not doing it because she's saying I have to protect her. Yeah. But I am protecting her because it's my responsibility.
You want to do it. And
I want to do it.
And I think what most probably would be helpful to white people, again, I can just speak from that perspective. Back to Kalicha, you're there with Linnell, whom we both know, is a white lady, for those of you guys that don't know. And people are looking at her and you're saying, no, they're not looking at you. It's your imagination.
Exactly. That's it.
It's me going into Soweto and driving there in my car, pulling my sunroof closed, and you're saying to me, "Oh, no one notices you." Okay.
Yeah.
It's like, man, listen, It's impossible for them to not notice me.
Absolutely.
Now, in all honesty, even if they didn't notice me, even if I was just deceived and thinking they noticed me, although it's very hard to imagine that.
Yeah.
For you to dismiss that would be insensitive.
Absolutely.
Because for me, at least, it felt that way. And if we are friends, then the question is, can you validate that? And I do think putting a white person in a Soweto or a Kalicha or Guguletu, I think they would all feel like they stand out like a sore thumb. And I'm not picking on white people here. That's not my intention. I'm just trying to paint a picture of the reality when you can see it. And I think that's what many black, and next week we'll get to colored people, but what they are feeling. And where they need the support. So, Themba, we have run out of time. Maybe we can do another one at another time again. But again, certainly appreciate your friendship, appreciate all your insight, your help, your heart for this, and your heart to want to fight for it, for us to work at it together. And that we're all on the same side. So, really appreciate it. Amen.
Thank you, my friend.
I mean, that was some pretty intense stuff, I think, for many people. And as I said before, will most probably bring to the forefront many feelings. And all parties, I again want to say, don't feel guilty about what it is that you're feeling, but rather be open and talk, and let us continue the conversation with one another. And I think what we sometimes forget is, like in any family, we're a family of 5. We are very, personally, Lisa, myself, and the 3 girls, we have very different temperaments, we have very different views on everything, and we are all white and we're all Afrikaans speaking. But as part of being family is being able to understand each other and to work through these things and to be there for one another and look out for one another. And I feel like that's one of the big things for me as well that surfaced in this, is that as a church, we need to be looking out for each other, and particularly white brothers and sisters in Cape Town, to look out for colored and black disciples that might have a very different experience of the city than you do. But also, I would say, on the other side of the fence, when people maybe feel very critical at this stage towards white people, that as a church that we will be different, and that we will say, but these are my brothers and my sisters, and we're working through things. So let's continue to talk, let's continue to pray, and let's continue to work at it. At this stage, and connected to this, we're coming to a time where we partake in the Lord's Supper. And obviously every week we do this. We eat bread and drink the fruit of the vine in remembrance of Jesus. And the whole point is to remember what it is that Jesus came to do, to break us free from the power and hold that sin has over us. And I want to look at the scripture in Ephesians chapter 2, where Paul writes to the church in Ephesus, and he says to them, remember that formerly you are Gentiles, so speaking to non-Jewish people here, remember that formerly you are Gentiles by birth and called uncircumcised by those who call themselves a circumcision. Might be a bit strange for us, but the Jewish people were distinguished by the fact that they were circumcised and the Gentiles were uncircumcised. He says, okay, so remember that formerly you are Gentiles by birth and called uncircumcised by those who call themselves the circumcision. Remember that at that time you were separate from Christ, excluded from citizenship in Israel. So before Jesus came, they were not able to be part of Israel, part of the people of God. He says, and you were foreigners to the covenants of the promise, without hope and without God in this world. And I don't want to go too much into this, but man, that's totally my experience before I became a Christian. He says, but now, in Christ Jesus, you who once were far away have been brought near by the blood of Christ. For he himself is our peace, who has made the two groups, Gentile and Jewish groups, the two groups one, and has destroyed the barrier, the dividing wall of hostility. His purpose was to create in himself one new humanity out of the two, thus making peace. And in one body to reconcile both of them to God through the cross, by which he put to death their hostility. And what Paul is saying to the church in Ephesus is the very purpose, one of the very purposes rather, that Jesus came was to break this wall of hostility, these differences of fighting about cultures, fighting about race, fighting about what we think God's plan is. And he says, but to bring these two groups together, and for us, these are many groups in our situation as a church family that we want to bring together, but that it can be done, it should be done. It is a mark of who it is to be the people of God, and it is done through Jesus. And so today, as we take the Lord's Supper, think of the beauty of what it is that Jesus made possible for you and I to sit maybe today in our house, but usually on a Sunday together as a church, where we're able to sit together, white, black, colored, Asian, Russian, Portuguese. The whole lot is made possible through Jesus. With that in mind, let's go to God in prayer. Heavenly Father, thank you so much that although all of us at some point, Father, were not close to you and we are Gentiles by birth, that through Jesus you made us a part of your promised people, Father, that you made us a part of your new humanity, Father, that we get to be the people of God, that we get to be the people that can set things right, Father, by the way we interact with each other and by who we are as a family, and as we spread your plan and your splendor and your beauty across the world. I pray this morning as we eat the bread and as we drink the fruit of the vine, let us be reminded of Jesus, and not only that he made this possible, but just who he was for us and who he is still today. Father, we love you. We pray this in your Son's name.